And we are live. Hello, guys. Welcome to Jason Hebert Live. We have another missing persons interview for you. Let me try to face the camera best I can, guys. People have said that before. Sorry. So if you are into trying to help solve these cases, trying to help these families who desperately need your help, the show is interactive. You're able to ask questions and get them answered live. So please click subscribe below and make sure to set the notification bell to all. This will notify you every time I start a video, and I always give it some notice so you can be ready. Hello to the chat. We get Denise, Shirley, Anita, Royal Blue, Be United as always. That's a group I work with. The links are below. We'll go over the flyer in a moment. T, Elizabeth, Denise, Tammy, Shady. How you doing? I haven't seen you in a bit. Hope all is well. Lisa, Yvette, Linda, Dave. We got a few people in here. It's starting to fill up. So thank you. Oh, sorry. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us tonight. We will be interviewing the mother of Keith Roberson. Making sure I said the name right. I think she just said Roberson. I was saying Roberson. She's nodding. I can see her. Okay. Keith Roberson. Awesome. Her name is Sharmon Roberson, and her son, as you know, has gone missing. So let me first show you Be United's flyer. This is the flyer Be United Missing Persons has made for Keith. Can you see it there on screen? 1 second. There we go. So here's Be United's flyer. Please check them out, guys. This is a group that I work with. They are awesome. They help a lot with the missing. We also have, there we go. This is created by Linda Richardson, who is another advocate for the missing. This is her flyer and picture. So we have a lot of people coming on trying to help Keith out, as well as some of the other subjects we've had. So we have an awesome group of people here that helps out. So thank you so much for joining us today. And let's go over Keith's story. I'm going to give you guys the basics. We are going to leave the majority of it, of course, for Sharmon, because she can tell Keith's story better than me, or better than anyone for that matter. So give me just a moment here. Okay. On September 5th of 2018, 26-year-old Stephen Keith Roberson was driving on I-10 East towards Sonora, Texas, when his car crossed the median, launched into the air, and landed on top of another vehicle. The other driver was hurt and put into a coma, but he did survive and make a recovery. Keith has not been seen or heard from since the accident. Now, there are reports that people saw Keith running from the scene after the accident, although strangely, police reports list no witnesses. That is a fact we will go over with Sharmon. Keith had been having some recent struggles in his life, and there was recent drug usage. We are not sure, but we believe a combination of this and tiredness may have contributed to the accident. Keith was driving his dad's sister's boyfriend's truck during this accident, as unfortunately he had been in another accident just 2 weeks prior where he had crashed his own vehicle into an 18-wheeler. So he had a couple recently. He was having some struggles. While Keith, as mentioned, had been having some struggles in his life, he had actually managed to do very well for himself and turn his life around after being released from incarceration in Texas prison system. He had gotten a job in the oil fields again, where he had worked since before he was even 18 years old. And he was working with his father. And all reports are that Keith was doing very well at work, and he had even been promoted to supervisor position. But a year previous, he had started running with a bad crowd again, his mother says, and had began dating a girl who herself had just been released from prison. He had brought his girlfriend back to Odessa, Texas, and had a heated back and forth relationship with her. And his mom says this is when she begun to see a decline in her son. But his mother says he has never and would never even go 2 weeks without talking to her. And now it's been 2 years since anyone's heard from him. She and everyone else in Keith's life are very worried about him, and all describe him as a good guy, extremely likable, who had begun to do well for himself and was turning his life around. And now his family and loved ones are desperate to find him. Tonight, as mentioned, we have Sharmon Roberson, Keith's mom, on to tell us his story, in the hopes that someone who knows something will come forward. There's no such thing as information being too small or too inconsequential to matter. So please, if you know something, please come forward with what you know. Sharmon, I just want to say I'm so sorry for what you're going through, and you have the support of me and my team and all my subscribers.
Thank you so much.
Do you want to start by telling us maybe a little bit about Keith and then lead us into what we do know in the days and weeks before his disappearance?
In high school, Keith was the guy that everybody liked. He's funny. He's happy all the time. He'd give you the shirt off his back. He's honest. He's loyal. He's smart. And being a millennial, though, he was just the opposite of the typical. He was a very hard worker and was very proud of his job. He started in the oil field even before he was 18 years old, and started out on a rig and then went over on the completion side and worked actually at the, being 26 years old, he'd been doing flowback for 7 years. And so he was very proud of his job. He'd been promoted to a supervisor position. His goal was to become a completions company man or superintendent. And so he loved what he did. He was good at what he did, and he was proud of that. And so he's just an all around good guy and loved by many, and we miss him very much.
Okay. Now we do have some information as to what was going on in his life in the weeks and days, maybe even months prior. Do you want to go over all the details that you feel are relevant to his disappearance?
Well, he had been incarcerated, and when he got out, within 9 days he went back to work for the young man who had trained him to do flowback and had worked with him for many years. The oil field bunch is a very close family. We become family, and we stick together, and we help each other. And so after he got out of state jail, he was immediately given a job that was pre-planned. He went right back to work. And that was in September of 2017, or October of 2017. And then in December, he put $12,000 down on a $40,000 pickup, and he was real happy about that he had done that himself, and that he had saved his money, and he had worked hard, and he was doing really well. And that resulted in a supervisor position, a promotion for him, and he was very pleased, and so was I. Was very proud of him for instead of coming back out doing the same thing, he changed and decided that he was going to make something of himself, and he worked very hard, and he worked very long hours. He worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and he'd be on a well maybe a month at a time, and then get 3 or 4 days off, and we'd get to see him. And so he just, I could tell that he started running with some people that not even necessarily that he had ran with before, but I could tell I was starting to be suspicious that drug use might be involved again, that substance abuse was something that had entered his life again. And then, he gets with the girlfriend, and that was heated, and it was back and forth, and there was a lot of drama there and a lot of arguing, and he was very depressed and upset, and they had broken up, and just back and forth. And so all of this, and then he wrecked his own pickup, and I didn't see him in between the 2 weeks that he wrecked his own pickup in the truck he was driving the night that he disappeared. And so I didn't know, I kept saying, you need to go to the hospital. Are you sure you don't want to get checked out? And he assured me he was fine. And he really didn't have a scratch on him, although he had an 18-wheeler. And then the night of the disappearance, we don't know where he was going. We don't know why. I had talked to him at 8:30. The wreck happened about 9:30. We don't know. I mean, he was 17 miles on the other side of Sonora, going east on I-10 towards San Antonio, and we don't know why he was there. He had to be at work the next morning. It's not like him not to show up to work. And so the next morning, his dad called me and said, hey, Keith's not here. And his phone was going straight to voicemail. And I didn't think a whole lot about it at the time, but I thought, maybe he's pulled a good one, or he's out with a girl, or he overslept, because he does work long hours.
Mm.
And so I kind of piddled, and I put my oil field clothes on, my FRCs, and I went down to that area thinking, he's going to turn up, and I can get some work done. I can go to my rigs while I'm down there, because I'm in the oil field also, as well. And I did that, but by the time I got down there, man, I was getting worried, and I was wondering, why isn't he answering the phone? He would be up by now. He's not going to sleep all day. And so I on the way down, I called Trace Hendricks. He was the chief of police in my hometown of Clifton, Texas. I've known him since I was 13 years old. He's a dear friend. He is my rock through this, my advisor, and my support system, and my legal advisor, as well, as far as what my options are in law enforcement, and what guidance, what should I do, and of course, just a dear friend. I couldn't go through this without Trace. But I called Trace. I said, "What do I do?" And he said, "Go ahead and go down to Ozona," which my son, Ozona and Sonora are the next town over. And I went, and he said, "Go ahead and go to Ozona, go to the sheriff's department there. They're not going to let you file a missing persons report yet, because it hadn't been 24 hours. Go ahead and tell them what's going on, Sharmon." I did. Spoke to an officer there, and he said, "Go on down to our DPS office here in Ozona and tell them as well." And I did that. And I left both, and I went back to his location where his dad was working, talked to his dad, and try to figure this out. And the DPS office called me back and said, "We know what happened. He was involved in a wreck last night. People had stopped, and he was seen running from the scene. The last location that he was seen, per police, was 2 miles from the wreck. Still running down I-10. They say a vehicle pulled over, and it was like, 'Hey man, are you okay?' They'd seen the wreck behind them, and that he kept running, although he was waving down traffic. So he's waving traffic down, and then they stop, and he runs. He continues to run. So I was worried about his mental state. I was worried about the wreck 2 weeks before. I was worried about, the son that I raised, the person I know would never leave anybody injured on the side of the road. Never, never. He couldn't have seen that and taken off. I don't. Yes. Could there have been a split-second decision where he was just like, "I'm scared," and yeah, that's possible. But and I don't know, until I would be that in that situation, what I would do. But I know that he wouldn't want to hurt anybody, and he wouldn't want to leave anybody injured. And so, that being said, when I received the police report from DPS who worked the accident, there are no names listed as witnesses or phone numbers for me to contact. That they say there's witnesses, and that he was seen, but there's no evidence of that. There's no documentation, not evidence. There's no documentation of that.
Okay, and I think that's odd, right? They would always list the witnesses.
I would think that those witnesses should have been listed on the report, as the last known people to have seen him.
We do have a question from Linda Richardson. I'm not sure if she means which accident she's referring to, so maybe you can go over both. Was his truck severely damaged? What was the condition of his truck, if it's okay to ask?
It is okay to ask. You can ask me anything, actually. The condition of the first vehicle, his truck, was that it was totaled. It was totaled, and luckily, and we made fun of this. He had the ugliest big. It wasn't wrench hand, but those big old Texas bumpers, or the grill guard bumper combination. And I told him, that's the ugliest bumper I've ever seen in my life. Well, when he had this wreck and that bumper saved his life, I said, "You've got to get another one of those bumpers when you get a new pickup."
Yeah.
Even though, yeah, it was ugly. And so it was damaged, yes, and it was totaled, yes. And so then in the second wreck, Trace Hendricks came the next day from Clifton to Sonora to help me. And the first thing Trace wanted to do is talk to the Sutton County Sheriff's Office. And then the second thing he wanted to do was go look at the vehicle. And he did that. And when he got back in the pickup, he said, "Sharmon, I want to tell you why I wanted to see the truck." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because I can see the integrity of the steering wheel. There's no blood in the truck. If the steering wheel had been broken, it would have meant that the impact would have forced his body into the steering wheel, and there could be internal damage because of that." And Trace was quite certain that because the steering wheel was not damaged, that Keith probably didn't receive injuries, debilitating injuries or internal injuries, I guess. But that truck, he landed on top of another vehicle. And so the bottom of this truck was damaged, and it totaled as well. But it was an older pickup. It was a 2004, I believe.
Okay. So I actually was going to ask something similar so we can kind of wrap this question in. Are they sure it was him? The people who supposedly saw him, even though there's no one listed, they saw him a couple miles running, waving down traffic. Did they claim they also saw him leaving that vehicle so that we know the guy waving down traffic was him?
I was told, okay, so law enforcement did not see him that night, as far as my understanding. His wallet was left in the vehicle. His computer, his laptop for work was left in the vehicle. So he had personal belongings in that vehicle. The people, of course, that stopped could not identify him. They don't know him. But law enforcement says that it was him.
Okay, so they seem sure.
They seem sure.
Tammy says, "I wonder if he was dazed. That could have contributed to him running." That's correct. She says, "I saw the map where it showed the cars. Maybe he hitchhiked." It sounds like that is what he was trying to do, assuming that's him waving down the cars, right? Okay. I believe I saw a name. Dave Wilson of the United asked, "Has he been in NamUs?" I think I saw a NamUs number on one of the pictures, right?
Okay. Yes, I added him to NamUs, but yeah, as of yesterday, and it's been 2 years, he was put. I was told that Sutton County Sheriff's Office put him in, or listed him, or actually completed the missing persons report that I filed a year and a half ago. They refused to file the missing persons report because there are warrants for his arrest for fleeing and for bodily injury because he hurt someone. The other person in the wreck was injured. We pray for that person. We're very sorry that happened to him.
Absolutely. And it's already been mentioned, but just to mention again, this was completely accidental. Keith didn't and wouldn't want to hurt anybody.
It was an accident. It was an accident.
And
the only update I've ever gotten was actually not from the police. It was from the insurance company about the welfare of the other party, because I did ask and ask them if they could get a message that we are so sorry and that we pray for them and that we hope that they're okay. Absolutely.
So we know, just for anybody, because we try to consider all sides, of course, for anybody wondering about that person, I know you said he's out of the coma. As far as we know, is it a full recovery, or we're not really 100% sure?
I have no updates whatsoever. Okay. I believe that the young lady, Alana, who just wrote Keith's story, she is with the San Angelo newspaper. I reached out to her and asked her, and she did a very good job of writing Keith's story. And she reached out to the family, and I don't believe that she got a response. But I don't want to bother them. I don't know how they would feel about me contacting them. But I haven't had any updates on their. I do know that they are not deceased.
Okay.
I know that.
So a couple things. Anything we talk about in this podcast, myself or my guests or any co-hosts or anything, it's all alleged. We never make any hard accusations, whether it be the subject we're talking about or anyone else involved. We're simply trying to piece things together, and also that we want to say our hearts also go out to the man or the person in the other accident, and we pray for your full recovery. So Amanda Beauchamp asks, has the girlfriend been assisting with the search for him?
No, absolutely not. I was told that she knew about the wreck at 4 a.m. the next morning. I believe that she knows more. I don't know that she's ever been interviewed by police. I have very uh, little to no police assistance other than Trace Hendricks in Clifton, Texas, who's 6 hours from me in Odessa, and who's also running for Bosque County Sheriff. He's got his own town to run, and I try not to bother him very much, but sometimes I just have to, and he's pretty good about listening to me. But other than that, Sutton County, the DPS office. I've actually talked to a Texas Ranger here in Odessa. I don't get any feedback from him. Um, I there's nobody working on this but me until now. So
Okay. And we will do everything, me and my people, we can. Obviously, when you're thousands of miles away, it can be tough to do some things when you don't have boots on the ground. But by all means, I'm always trying to help. I don't just do the interviews,
right.
So Be United Missing Persons asks, do we know why Keith is not on Texas State Missing Clearinghouse?
He supposedly was entered. Sutton County Sheriff's Office did tell me that as of yesterday, because of Karen Knuckles Phillips' attempts
She's great, by the way.
contacting
Karen, we love you.
Karen, we
Karen's
love
great.
Karen.
Yeah.
Go, Karen. She's a beast because of her efforts. Yesterday, I was told by Sutton County Sheriff's Department that he was put into the Texas DPS Missing Persons Clearinghouse. Although I do not see it yet, but I'm going to give it till Monday because I was told today by an officer that it could take 24 to 48 hours. So I'm going to give it some time before I go bugging them again. So as far as NamUs goes, he's in NamUs. He is pending. He's been pending for a year and a half. When we get a missing persons report number, that will go into NamUs and he will be active. And that way his DNA can be tested against bodies that have been recovered and such.
And I want to go over that because I know you of course we don't know, but you do have some ideas and ways you're leaning as to what may be happening right now. But before I do, I just want to answer Jesse Johnson, who asked, do you have a Facebook page or group for him that we can follow or join? Jesse, if you go right under this video, you'll see the description. If you click show more, it'll bring up all the relevant links. I have both Keith's group and Sharmon's page for anyone that wants to send any tips or any ideas of what may have happened or anything like that. And that's the case on all my videos. If you're watching, if you ever say, oh, geez, I want to contact this person, I have some information, you can always go into the description. You just often have to click show more because it only shows the first few lines. But I was going to ask, so of course we don't know, and we don't want to discourage anyone from researching any possibilities or theories, but where are you? We talked about this a little before here. Where are you leaning as to not so much what happened, but what the situation may be now?
Okay, so after we find out kind of what happened, like my team came the next day. I brought my own cops to the investigation. One of them was Trace, and then the oil field company that I worked for at the time employed a gentleman who had been the sheriff of Somerville County, Texas for 12 years, and he was our safety guy. So he came too. And so I bring my own cops in, and the sheriff of Sutton County got a helicopter for me, and the next day. And it was a private, and we had to pay for the fuel. I'm actually going to tell this story because it's one of the neatest things that the only neat thing that's ever happened in the whole 2 years. But we, they did search with drones. They searched with men on foot, men on horseback, and then the helicopter came. And there was a 13,000 acre high fence ranch behind where the wreck occurred off of I-10. And the sheriff said, "Go out here, guys." And, I took my little posse with me. My best friend, Brandy Dominguez, my other best friend, Joey Adams, Trace Hendricks, and then my boss was actually on his way. He was bringing side by sides to search for Keith. So we all go out to the airport at this ranch. It was very nice, very fancy. And the helicopter is going to come in, and there was a little couple there that actually took us in and wanted to feed us and what do you need to drink, and they just took care of us, and they managed, the retired couple that managed the airport, very, very good people. And he brings in the helicopter and does the signaling, and she just kind of hangs out with you and takes care of you. But she asked me, she said, as we were waiting on the helicopter, she said, "Do you pray?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I do." And she said, "Can I pray with you?" And I said, "Yeah." And then the husband wanted to pray, and then we all prayed, and the helicopter came in, and I start crying. And she said, "You got to have faith." And I said, "I'm not crying right now because the helicopter's, because of Keith. I'm crying because somebody's doing something." And that helicopter is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And Trace got on it, and I couldn't do it, but Trace got on it, and I grabbed him by his collar, and I said, "Right now you're looking for Peanut," which is his daughter, instead of Keith. And he said, "Yep, I sure am. I'm looking for Peanut." And he said, "Peanut is Keith right now." And I said, "Okay." And he went in, and he went up, and they stayed, for hours. And the ranch manager, who knows that ranch like the back of his hand, was also in the helicopter. And when he got off, he said, "Sharmon, I could see bunny rabbits." He said, "He's not out there. He's not out there laying around, injured, dying. He's not dead out there. He's not here." And I said, "Okay, that we know something." And he's not there. So, and they went on the other side of the highway. They did a very thorough search. And I had made the statement because my boss at the time was coming. He's just a good old guy. And I had said, "Y'all, when Tony gets here, we don't have to worry about a thing." Not that I expected it, but Tony's just the guy that's going to come in. He's going to pay for the rooms and the food and take care of everybody and make sure everybody's comfortable. And when I went to the helicopter pilot, he said to pay him for the fuel. He said, "Ma'am, it's already been taken care of." And I thought, wow, Tony has already paid for the helicopter too. And when we got in the pickup, Trace said, "Sharmon," this is the only time I get cheered up these days. I talk about this so much. I'm used to it. But he said, the little couple at the airport paid for the helicopter.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So if they ever see this, I want to thank them for that, because that was the coolest thing that's ever happened. Anyway, so that was a neat story. So moving on, so there was a search immediately. I also have a friend. He's oil field to me, but his name's Don Brawley, and he is the chief deputy in Eastland County currently. And Don is a 20-year Texas Ranger veteran and a mutual friend of ours. I didn't, but somebody else called Don and said, "Hey, Sharmon, I need some help." And Don got me a FLIR helicopter, and he got me 2 more DPS helicopters out of Lubbock. That within the rains came, very heavy flooding that next week. And when DPS helicopters were able to fly, they flew again after the initial helicopter. They flew again over the next week or two. I wasn't aware of when, but I do know that they did fly and they didn't find anything. So after that, we kind of we regrouped. We talked to the police some more, and everybody kind of came home because we were like, we just don't know. When I got home, I walked in. I lived in an RV that my employer provided, and it was a fifth wheel, so it had the bedroom upstairs, and it had 2 air conditioners. And I left them running. It was September. It was still hot. I left them running the entire time in Odessa, Texas. And when I got in that evening, there was water in the bottom of my shower and water trickling off the side of the shower, and the towel was wet. I'm kind of a neat freak. And so if I walk in my house and something's moved, I know it. And I knew. I called all my girlfriends. I still, because if somebody's water went out and they wanted to come over and take a shower, that's fine. But nobody ever called me. And I called all my girlfriends. I was like, "What? You been to the RV? You been over here?" And they were like, "No." I knew that Keith had been there. I thought that Keith had been there. I felt that Keith had been there. So I just sat at home for 2 weeks waiting on him to come in, and let's figure this out. And, there's going to be warrants. There's going to be, I lawyered up immediately for him, so that that he would have representation when he turned himself in, and he never showed up. So 2 weeks later, I decided I would start. Police aren't doing anything. I think I'll just start knocking on doors. And I've knocked on plenty of doors in Odessa, Texas, which is very scary. And I've heard some things, nothing that's really panned out. I know what I feel, and I do feel that he is deceased. But I have no proof of that, and I hope I'm wrong. I certainly hope I'm wrong. And I hope that this turns something up, and that we find him and he's safe, and that we'll have to just figure out the rest of his life. But I do hope I'm wrong. But at this point in time, my son wouldn't go 2 weeks without talking to me, much less 2 years. We were very close, and he loved his.
Okay. And we pray that that's not the case, of course. Either way, there are going to be some things to work out, and it's not an ideal situation, but we pray he gets the chance to work them out, because it sounds like he's the kind of guy that will.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put up 2 questions here because they're similar. So I want to make sure we try to get to everything. The first is, did Stephen or Keith have it? Guys, his name, I guess his legal name is Stephen, but he goes by Keith. Is that right?
Yes. Well, he goes by Keith. He has a nickname that he earned in prison, and it's Dirty, even though he's. Do you know how embarrassing it is to walk around with your phone with this picture saying, "Do you know my kid Dirty?" Yeah, not cool.
Yeah. Well, nowadays, like, negative things are made positive. Like, it's like a guy named Tiny is big, or kind of thing,
A dear friend of ours, actually, a good friend of Keith's and mine. I've worked with this guy in the oil field. He gave him the nickname Dirty. I could choke him, but yeah.
That's funny. So Carrie Hazel asked, did he have his phone on him, or was it left in the truck? And Diamond Hampton asked, has his phone been tracked if he had it with him?
His phone was never recovered from the accident scene, and I have been over every inch of where the accident, all over the accident scene looking. Trace and I also looked in the truck, and the police say they never recovered the phone, but that night it was turned off, or it was destroyed, or in the wreck, or it has never been used again since I believe the last phone call was 8:30 that night. His phone was on my plan. So I can see his texts, I can see his phone calls, I can see all that, and it hasn't been used after. He has not used any form of social media. His Facebook, I actually have a friend of his who gave me, Keith had changed this guy's password, so he knew it. He gave me the password to his Facebook, so that if Keith tried to communicate through there, that I would be able to see it. And so he's no communication with anyone after the wreck, not on social media, not Gmail, not Yahoo Mail, not anything. Bank accounts, financials, nothing.
Okay. So sounds like you've really covered your bases. Anita asks, is it possible Keith could have lost his memory after the accident and is lost?
Yes, that's a possibility.
So please, guys, keep an eye out. And you probably want to focus in Sonora and Odessa, Texas and stuff, but keep in mind it's been 2 years. So whether he's driving, walking, hitching, I mean, he could be anywhere at this point. So no matter where you are, keep an eye out. We will continue to put his pictures up, of course. Anita says if he lost his memory, his phone battery would die and he'd forget any passwords. As I was going through the pictures, I know you were answering about the phone. Did you say it has been pinged? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that because I was pulling it
Okay.
up.
That is a recent thing too. And I have been told, I was asked recently by a law enforcement agency, and this was 2 times they've offered to help, but for his Gmail account, because it has location services in Gmail,
Yeah.
and for his phone number, and they were going to try to obtain a warrant to ping his last known location.
Oh,
And
okay.
I do not have those results yet. I haven't heard back from that yet.
Oh, good. But that's something that could be forthcoming soon, at least.
Yes, yes.
Oh, good. A couple people like the nickname Dirty, by the way. Shady Booty.
I
So
know.
cute.
I'm glad y'all like that.
And she actually, I'm not sure if it's a she or a he, Shady. I apologize. I think you're a she. So she says, so sad and odd. He has to be alive. He has to be somewhere. I think that makes it more likely. Yeah, he possibly is alive still. And she says, keep hope alive.
That's awesome. Thank you.
A few people think that, so
Mm.
hopefully they're correct in that. And Keith, there will be a point at the end of this where we have your mom talk directly to you. But I just want to say, if you're out there, man, you have a lot of support. Everyone makes mistakes. Some are bigger than others. But I understand if you have been incarcerated, it's probably the kind of thing where, like, I'm not going back there. So it might make you run or get scared or do something you wouldn't typically. But this is fixable stuff, man. You didn't kill anyone. So come forward, please. And if you know something, if Keith has contacted you and said, hey, don't tell anyone because I'm trying to lay low, come, even if you don't have to tell Keith that you come, but let Sharmon know so she at least knows he's okay or something like that. Help out. Sonny asks, sure, hope the best. I can remember when he was a very young man. Sure, wishing the best for you, Sharmon. Sounds like a friend, family friend.
Yes, he's an old friend.
Thank you, Sonny. Carrie Hazel asks, was Keith a loner that could live on his own in a different state or possibly Mexico? Basically, did he have survival skills if he did want to disappear for a bit?
Keith, they say in the oil field, and his buddies, his friends, his coworkers all say that Keith could fix anything. He was a self-made mechanic, and he did it by what, and I do it now the same way because as a single mom, having to fix stuff. Um, he watched YouTube videos, but they say and my dad was an airplane mechanic, but my dad was so much older and retired by the time Keith was born that he didn't really teach him those skills, but he is extremely smart. And he can figure things out. And yes, he's a survivor. And yes, he could. In the beginning, I was like, there's just no way. Another thing, too, that people have said, suggestions from other people is Sonora is very close to Mexico, and that's no mom wants to think about that, but I do think about that. It's very close, and of course, if you're going to run, let's go to Mexico, and so, but too, that's very scary. It's a very scary place to be these days. It's a very dangerous place to be, and I hope that's not the case. And I don't think he would think like that, but after 2 wrecks in 2 weeks, I don't know that he could think, So I speculation. A lot of things go through your mind.
Absolutely. So Shady asks, someone else to know something. Did any of his guy friends reach out to you or anyone else?
I have a small army of young men who, and some were ones that were in prison with him, that love him and that would do anything in the world for me. And I have their support and their love, and I have their strong arms if I need them. And so I
Are
do.
these the guys that named him Dirty?
They are.
Yeah.
They are. Actually, they are. And so, and I call on them and they let me know. I get Happy Mother's Days from those guys, and I can call them if I need them. And I don't very often because they have their own lives, but sometimes I'll just get a text. Another thing is, I immediately put up a $10,000 reward for my son, and um, not even, actually, this has been pretty recent. Within the last 6 months, I was contacted by a young man that has worked with my son, and he said, Sharmon, I'd like to offer 5,000 more. And so there's a $15,000 reward. I won't pay for information, but I will pay for his return, dead or alive.
Okay. So that's out there, guys. If you know something, $15,000 reward if it leads to him. So we skimmed over this a bit, and this is the kind of thing that some people don't want to go too in depth because we want to focus, on who he was as a person, not any mistakes made. But I wanted to give you the opportunity to address or not address this, if you'd like to. So we do have a question from Tammy. What was he using drugs? Do you want to go into anything like that may be pertinent to the case?
It's fine. Keith was a functional drug user. Like, he could get up and go to work, and it wasn't like he sat around doing drugs all day long and didn't have a job. His job was first, and then that was just. But it's been a constant in his life since probably he was 13 years old, starting with marijuana. And so yes, he is. It's been off and on. It's progressed into darker drugs, I guess, is a way to. I don't really want to go into the but a variety. And so it is what it is. And that being said, he didn't become a thief. He didn't become a loser. He didn't become someone who just sat around staying high all the time doing nothing. He still went to work, and it didn't affect his relationships that I could see negatively. It wasn't overboard, I guess. I'm not trying to condone drug use in any way, but it was something that we've dealt with for a long time, and not anything that I've ever condoned for him. But I've tried, and I couldn't stop it.
Okay. We have a lot of family friends and stuff. People. Kelsey said she went to school with Keith, and you're 100% right. He was the class clown.
Okay.
And he is missed, and she says prayers.
Thank you, Kelsey.
So we cover a variety of different missing persons cases. Some, you never know, of course, but some seem to have more hope than others as far as them still being out there. And I know you're not really leaning in that direction, but being as how we at least know he was running, at least in the very beginning, according to witnesses, we're keeping hope alive that he's out there. And if he is, and he happens to watch this, do you want to give a message directly to him?
I do. Boy, I'm going to lose it probably. I read something earlier.
Take your time.
Well, I read something earlier where the girl had said, I was okay. I did okay. And I think I have too, until he asked me to speak to him, or you asked her to speak to her daughter. And she said, then I lost it. And I probably will, but I'm going to try not to, because really, this is important. And if he does see this, I don't want him to see me cry. I want him to listen. There's nothing that we've never been able to not conquer, to get through. I'm your savior. I always have been, and we can do this too. And I love you, and I want you to come home.
Okay. Keith, if you're out there, please come forward. Like we said before, it's fixable. All right. You didn't do anything that's unfixable. Even with the history and stuff, it can all be resolved. So please, and if you know something, also come forward. A few more questions. Carrie Hazel asks, how long was he with the girlfriend?
Not long at all. Just a month or so.
Linda asks, is it possible he could have had help if he did run? It sounds like he had a lot of friends.
I believe this is something I haven't touched on. I believe that his dad was the one that got him out of Sonora and brought him to Odessa, Texas. I believe that his dad does. I don't think he knows where he is now, but I think his dad loaded up every bit of his clothing, and before I ever got to Sonora, and I believe that his dad and him did drugs together, and I believe that his dad got him out of there and got him to Odessa and dropped him off, and everything's gonna be okay. And then I think I believe that within 2 weeks of him coming to Odessa, that he was killed here. But that's just me and the knocking on doors and the things that I've heard, and the people that he associated with here. I hope I'm wrong. Again, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm completely wrong, and that all of this that I've done is just a bunch of nothing. But I do think his dad. I've asked his dad to see his clothes, and he couldn't produce them for me. Um, and if anything that I want, if Keith, I want his stuff. I want his clothes. If he's never coming back, I want his stuff. And his dad won't give them to me, so I don't think he has them. But I do think that his dad his dad didn't look for him the day we had the helicopters. His dad didn't search for him at all, and that tells me he knows where he is, or knew where he was then. I don't believe that he knows where he is now, to be clear.
Okay. So Edie Whitley asked, why do you think he was killed? And that kind of lines up with my question. So can you kind of go over, you had said the whole 2-week thing, killed versus saying overdose or something awful like that. And on top of that, sorry to compound so many questions in one. But do you think if he was killed, it is in relation to any of the accidents or drugs or anything like that? Or do you think it's unrelated and just a series of bad circumstances?
I think it's related to drugs. And I think it's related to a young man that he knew in prison. And I think that boy probably did something himself that ended up being a reflection on Keith. Keith would never ever take from anybody or ask for a front for drugs. He would never the drug world is a completely different set of rules, but he would never hurt anybody or screw anybody over or do anything foul. And I believe that someone else did, and that Keith was punished for that.
Okay, and I'm assuming the guy that you think this may be, he's still walking around and okay? You think it was only Keith?
He's actually in the Ector County Jail right now.
Okay.
But police, I've asked police to talk to him, and they don't.
I want to stress before I ask these next couple questions that, again, everything is only alleged.
Yes.
There are no hard accusations. We're not accusing anyone of anything. We're just piecing together. But we have a question from, I call them the two Tammys. They're two very big supporters of the channel. Tammy Spang asked, "What's her?" She was actually our first interview. We found her daughter, by the way. So there's still hope. But Tammy Spang asks, "What's up with his dad?" And the other Tammy asks, not the other Tammy, but another Tammy that we love and appreciate. Asks, do you think his dad had something to do with it?
I don't think his dad would hurt him, or no. As far as him like going missing or taking his son, or Keith was a grown man, and he would be 28 years old now. He's 6'2". He had been working out and had pretty big arms at the time that he disappeared. I think his dad, rescued him. I think that he took him. I love you too, Holly. And I think his dad took him and brought him to safety. I think his dad thought that he was doing the right thing. Honestly, this is probably something I shouldn't say, but I'm going to say it. In the beginning, I thought, I've just got to find him. We've got to get him to the police station and work this out. And then when I got home and I thought that he had taken a shower in my shower and that he was in Odessa, I thought, how in God's name am I ever going to do that? How am I ever going to take him to the police station? How am I ever going to turn him in? And I don't know, even though, of course I want to do what's right. I don't know that I could have. Eventually, maybe, because I do have a lawyer and a wonderful lawyer who's a dear friend also, and that would have wanted to do the right thing for Keith. But you sure have a hard time with turning that over and releasing him into that nightmare of incarceration and the way that they're treated there and things like that. And so, but I don't think his dad would have done any harm to him. No, 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 no. His dad and I divorced when Keith was 6 months old. I filed for divorce immediately after I had Keith. His dad left me. I was 6 months pregnant when he left me, and Keith was 6 months old, I believe, when we divorced. And he wasn't necessarily a factor. I pushed for that relationship. In retrospect, I'd have never done that again, but I pushed for that relationship, and he did have a relationship, but it was pretty much, if Keith wanted, we didn't do that whole let's pick him up at 6 o'clock, bring him home at 6 o'clock on Sunday thing. We did if you want to go to your dad's, go to your dad's, go hang out. But later, when Keith was maybe from 8 to 16, they did guy stuff. And that was where their relationship developed. And during that period of time, his dad's been incarcerated as well in TDC, and his dad, at that point in time, they did cool stuff, and they had a good relationship. And my husband was on track in his life, my ex-husband, but then later he deteriorated also. And I think that I'm angry at him. He doesn't even contact me to see what's going on. He knows what I'm doing. He knows I'm knocking on doors. He knows I'm doing dangerous things, and he didn't care. He does. He seems to have absolutely no interest in this.
Okay. Tammy says, I get it. My daughter's dad was, excuse me, very shady with her disappearance. People have to realize what this does to a mother. We need answers.
We need answers. We sure do. We'll do anything for those answers. We certainly will, and we won't give up.
Absolutely. And the other Tammy says, sorry to keep calling you the other Tammy.
Other Tammy.
Both Tammys. As a mother myself, I don't know if I could turn my child in either. That's hard. It has to be. So I think that's understandable, Tammy.
It is. You don't want to do anything. You want to keep them, and you want to hold them.
Especially in a situation where, so if he comes back around, we know he's already been through a lot. You don't want it to be the first thing you do is to throw him back into more trouble, right? You
and that's exactly what would happen, and that's hard. That's very hard.
Okay, Sharmon, is there anything that we didn't think to cover, be it a detail about him in general? He has a lot of tattoos you can go over, identifying marks, or just something about his personality or habits that you feel could contribute?
One thing that I do want to say is at one point in time, I quit showing pictures with tattoos. And two, it's scary you want to do this. You want to do it. You want the public to know. You want help. But when that happens, then I've had 3 separate ransom requests. The first one was a nightmare, and then you kind of learn what they're doing, and then I get to kind of jack with them now, and it's twisted, but it's kind of fun. But really, and then but he has a lot of tattoos, and so those become blurry to people, and especially when you have sleeves and your legs are all done and they all run together. His left ear is split. It looks like someone pulled an earring out of his ear and ripped it out, and so it is split. And so that is a characteristic of Keith's that is very easy to see. It's very definitive, and so there are pictures on my Facebook page. I'll make sure that Karen and I haven't talked about that, but I'll make sure that Karen puts some on his page, on his Bringing Keith homepage. And there's pictures, of course, on lots of pictures on his page that you can see that ear pretty good.
Okay. We did, Edie does say maybe the dad owed someone and they did something to Keith instead. You had mentioned that scenario with the friend. So she's just saying, and again, no accusations, guys. We're just.
No accusations, but that is a possibility. It sure is.
Ron Stanley says, awesome job, Sharmon. Prayers that this helps to bring you some peace.
That's one of my oil field guys right there. Thank you, Ron.
Okay, so that's his tattoos and identifiers. Is there anything else we didn't talk about that you do want to cover in relation to him or just the investigation in general?
No, I just, I guess my point through this is that I haven't had a lot of help from law enforcement, and I'm very scorned by that. I'm very angry about that. I've told Trace Hendricks, my childhood friend, the chief of police in my hometown, many times that I feel for him in the job he does daily, because I didn't realize until now, number one, how their hands are tied, and when they're not tied, that there's people out there that are his peers that act the way they do that they have towards me. That is, I'm embarrassed for some law enforcement. I'm ashamed and I'm angry, because no one who's lost a child should be treated the way I've been treated by law enforcement. And that's really my main point. Yeah, I want to find my son, but and another thing that I do want to say is this: is I say this all the time. There's no manual for this. There's no owner's manual or book that you can pick up and say, this is who you call when your child goes missing. This is what agencies you contact. This is where you name us and code us, and the Texas Department of Public Safety Missing Persons Clearinghouse, and da 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 da, and all the places that there's no manual for this. But I do want to say this: Karen Knuckles Phillips, Greg Johnson, and you, Jason. I found my manual this week. I sure did. And so thank you guys. Thank you for everything. I've had more done in 2 weeks by the three of you than I have done in 2 years, and I appreciate you so much. And his whole family does. His dad's family are my family, and they've been very good to me, and I love them. So thank them too.
Thank you. Jesse Johnson wants you to know he asked to join the group.
I'll prove that.
One last question.
Okay.
Linda Richardson asks, did he have any medical conditions we should know about?
No. He was just as healthy as he could be.
Okay. Physically and mentally?
Yes. Unless the wrecks, but yes, prior to that, yeah, he was just fine. Very smart, very healthy, very healthy. And he was working out, and he had big old buff arms, and he was real proud of that.
Okay. Keith, if you're out there, please contact her. If you know something, please contact Sharmon. Both the group, click show more in the description below, and both the group and Sharmon's page will be there. So I'm assuming they can contact you at either with any tips or information. Let me pull up, lastly, I'll go through his pictures one more time, because we also want to cover the police department. Trace Hendricks, who is actually her childhood friend. He's the chief. He's who you can call. The phone number is 254-386-6375 with case number 2020-00066.
Let me clarify. The case number is actually out of Sonora, Texas, who was the investigating agency in the beginning of that. Trace is the chief of police in Clifton, Texas, which is in Bosque County, but he is not officially, this isn't his case. He's my friend. But that being said, I don't want to put anybody else's name and number on my flyers, because on Keith's flyers, because I'm afraid that information will be overlooked. If Trace gets the information, it will be taken care of, and it will be investigated, and he will ensure that.
Okay, so you want it all to go to Trace?
I do, or me. I mean, or
right here.
Karen, But if I'm worried that if it goes to DPS or to Sutton County or even to the Texas Ranger in Odessa, that it will not be investigated.
Okay, and worth mentioning too, I always say this, but it doesn't really, my contact information is all below, guys. We have my general Facebook group, my personal Facebook, my email, all that stuff. You can send me something anywhere. It doesn't really make a ton of sense to just send it to me. If for whatever reason you didn't want to speak to police or Sharmon, I don't know why that would be a situation, but if you only were comfortable messaging me, then by all means, I'll send it over. But like she says, it's important to get it to the right place, especially if it's something time sensitive. God forbid I take 3 days to get to it and Keith was somewhere for a day. I mean, we don't want something like that happening. So you can send it to me, but please send it to Trace Hendricks with the number listed and or Sharmon at the links below. Sharmon, you were amazing. You represented Keith very well. I know he's proud of you, and I'm going to pray we bring him home, and this contributes. All right. So thank you to everybody in the chat for joining us. Again, click subscribe below, set the notification bell. We do this basically every single night almost, try to help these families and bring them some closure and some answers in any way that we can. So, all right, Sharmon, thank you so much. Have a great night. Let's bring Keith home, guys.
Let's bring Keith home.
All right. Bye-bye.